Lavender, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be kind of like a wrap-up video, but because I hate doing wrap-up videos so much because I never feel like I read enough, because yes, this is my job to read and put out content to you guys. However, I also have an actual like part-time job that I go to, so there's not really much hours in the day to where I can read more than like 3 books, plus take into account sleep and mental breakdowns. So I never really get the time or feel the need to do wrap-ups because of the fact that I don't read more than like maybe 2 or 3 books per month, if that. So I figured I would kind of do like almost like a little bit of a quarter one, even though we're way past quarter one, I feel like, video. So this is basically going to be what I have read from beginning of this year, January, to now, which I think it's like May. I did in fact pause this video to finish the 2 books that I was reading last week because I really wanted to have those 2 books in. I felt like it would be incomplete without adding the other 2 books that I read. So those will be for later because those are on my Kindle, so I don't have physical copies of them. I also was going to include like DNF books because I did DNF, I think 2 books, during this year. One of them is a soft DNF because it is Iron Flame, and that book is a chonker. And I want to read that book. I just need to get out of my reading slump I think that put me in one. I'm not gonna lie, I think Iron Flame put me in a reading slump, and I need to get out of one before I continue on reading that book, for fear of it putting back to square one. Anyways, and the other book is the 3rd book in the Truly Devious trilogy, which that's a whole other issue. I don't like that book or series really at all. Yeah, anyways, without further ado, let's get on into the books that I read from January to May. And these weren't in order, these were actually in order, but then I did the intro, little book stack intro, and now they're all out of order. So starting off with the first book, this book it's a maybe for me. It is a maybe. It is in a series, and it is a definitely I might continue finishing this series or reading this series, but it was a part of the February reading vlog where I read only romance for a month. It was Magnolia Parks by Jessica Hastings. I have qualms with this book. I only read this book because my favorite YouTuber, Madison Kate, she loves this book to death. Literally loves it. And I'm like, okay, cool. We have similar reading styles. So sure, I'll pick it up because, it looks interesting. I was going to read it because the cover just looked a bit weird. But I'll read it, I guess. And it wasn't horrible. I think I gave it like a 3-star, maybe 3 or 4-star. I don't know. It wasn't horrible. The dynamic between the two was just really like weird. Not weird, but it's really like it hit too close to home. And not to get into personal life, but let's just say my relationship with boys hasn't been the best. And by the best, I really mean I just continue to pick the bottom of the barrel kind of situations. And I felt like I was reading my life, but in a way fancier version of my life, if you know what I mean. So we have 2 people, which is BJ and Magnolia, and they basically both have a really like toxic relationship dynamic, but they still continue to love each other. Like it's a I love you, but like sometimes we aren't for each other. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. And Magnolia has her friends, BJ has his friends, and long story short, BJ and Magnolia kind of do this thing where to get at each other, they go to different people. So like if BJ does something with another person, Magnolia will go and do something with the guy. And because they're so well known, they end up getting like their names in papers or their names in, news articles or whatever. So everyone ends up finding out about their lives eventually, about how they are eventually. And so it's basically this like pull and tug where one minute they're in love with each other, the next other minute they're like fighting with each other. I don't know, like it was a really weird dynamic, and the ending just didn't, I think I'll have to read it. I'll think, because this is like a we get Magnolia and then we get someone else's perspective and then we get Magnolia and someone else's perspective. So I do want to read the other book to see if it's just I was in a really weird headspace, or if it was just a me problem and this book is actually really, really good. Who knows? But I feel like this book is a good, even though it talks about like a lot of weird, like unhealthy, toxic situations, I feel like this book really, if you are someone who likes any sort of reality TV show, I myself don't particularly. If you love a reality TV show, you will probably definitely love this, because it kind of read like that. It kind of read in a way like that and had the same sort of vibe, like energy. It's just toxic, but at the same time, like, they admit to their mistakes. Like, they actually admit that they might have a problem. They actually admit that, they're like this and that they're not like good for one another sometimes, but then they are. So yeah. But overall, I give this book like a 3 or 4 star rating. I will probably end up reading the second book just, to be sure if I don't like this book or whatever, because it is the first book. It is the first book in a very like intertwined series. But yeah, that was the first book. The second book that I also read in February is another romance, because, like I said, I read Only Romance for a week, or Only Romance for a month in February, and that is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. So this was like a fun little goofy, I don't even know if I read, actually, did I read this? I did not read this in February. What am I talking about? I finished this literally January 1st. I'm stupid. Okay, so I finished this January 1st. I think it's following two mafia families, Griffin and the Gallows. Basically, two Chicago mafia families that have been, have been like generations of families or whatever. Basically, they have a rivalry between the two where they don't like each other. It's kind of a money situation, also a power situation. And Adia and then Griffin are the two people that we follow in the series, because this is one of the series where it follows different characters in the same story, but in different, like, we follow their lives and not like continuation of this one. Anyways, so basically, Griffin and Adia are the two people that end up getting together, or that end up having to marry each other because of their rivalry between the two families. Because they have had this rivalry for so long that the families are like, okay, you know what? We have to figure something out. You two are going to marry. That's what we're going to do. We're going to create peace by you two marrying. And how this turns up is that Adia goes with her family Adia goes with her brothers to a family event for the Gallows. I think it's like some sort of like birthday or whatever. And basically, Adia finds herself going into the house, which then proceeds to go into the library. And then for whatever reason, she's like, I could easily dismantle this whole thing, blah, 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 blah. So she basically sets fire to the library. I'm stupid. It's Callum and Adia. Callum is in the library. There you go. Callum's in the library, and he's like, who did this? Who would have been in here with me while doing this? And he ends up finding that it's Adia. And because of this, he goes to his family, talks, and long story short, they have to get married. And at first, it's like a very obviously, I hate you, like, I literally want to kill you, why are you doing this, why? Like, we hate each other kind of situation. And eventually, they end up kind of figuring out that they actually do like each other, and that they actually do love each other, and they actually end up staying together. So it's a very, like, obviously, it's a romance, duh. But I think it's honestly very short. The only thing is, these books are very short. I haven't read the rest of these, which I feel like I've learned about myself, and I think I learned about this about myself literally last night. But I think I'm more someone who reads romances for a silly, goofy, fun time, because I can never find a romance that is actually like what I want it to be, like how I want it to go, how I want it to end, how I want it to flow, all that kind of stuff. Like I never find one that I actually like, and that isn't like a, oh, that actually felt a little forced, oh, I don't like them now, whatever. So I would say, going from what I thought then to what I think now of how I read romances, this book has, for how short it is and how much is in it in a very short amount of time, I would say, looking back on it now, I would probably give this book like a 3-star, because there were some moments where I think it was like in the middle where like you see that kind of push and pull to where you don't want to, you realize you guys like each other, or you realize you like each other, but I don't know what the other one person thinks, so it's like a keeping your distance kind of situation, or it's like something blows up in their face and it's like, oh, okay, how are we gonna solve this? Like, I think that part was just a little bit like quick and done with and whatever, just to get to the ending where they are together. But otherwise, I think for a fun little silly goofy time of like a palate cleanser or whatever, because it is pretty short, or like a book to get in, like in a challenge reading or whatever, this is a nice book to have because it is short and it is a romance, and it's kind of like got almost everything you want in one kind of situation. But I definitely think this is like you hadn't, like, this isn't like this is one of those silly goofy fun time, short little time, easy to read it. There are some like parts in it where like I did connect with the characters, but other than that, like, it's a silly goofy fun time. But it is the second book in the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher, which is Collided. I am obsessed with this series, and I actually have to hand it to Lauren Asher because the series actually got me into F1, and I feel like I would have gotten into it either way based on some of the movies that I watch, but this book really, with the whole like vocabulary and whatnot, really like got me into it. This is the second book in the interconnected series, which is the Dirty Air series. In this book, we follow Sophie and Liam being the F1 driver, and then Sophie being not an F1 driver, a F1 principal's daughter. Basically very uptight, very like, I want you to do what I want you to do kind of situation. I want you to have this, I want you to do this, kind of very just like, only because I think they both lost their mother. I don't know what it was from, or if it was like I think it was like she left them. So he's very uptight about things she does, very uptight about how she does it, because he wants what's best for her, but it's kind of it's like a parental dynamic that's like, I want what's best for you, so I'm helping you, but I'm instead lovingly suffocating you kind of situation. Like, he was lovingly suffocating her to where she felt like she couldn't, do her dream job. So basically, Liam and Sophie kind of have this like friends with benefits kind of dynamic, where he helps her cross things off her effort list, because she's like, I need to get out of how I was living. Like, don't know what's happening, but I need to get out of this whole like rut that I'm in. So I'm gonna create this list. I'm gonna take it with me to the F1 races. So basically, they ended up kind of falling in love with each other. But the thing is he's a rival team from her father's team or whatever. So the whole him getting together with her can't really happen because of the rivalry between the two. And long story short, they end up together. The only thing I don't really like about this book is that it seems to end like and I will say this is also one reason why I read romances for a silly goofy fun time. It's because I feel like the endings are always rushed in these. I feel like the endings are always like that. They're rushed, and I feel like you don't have that like super lovey-dovey like moment where you're just like a couple dating, you know what I mean? I absolutely love these books. I love Lone Ash's writing. She is so easy to read. It's like her writing is so easy to read and digest and whatnot. I honestly love this book and love this series so much. I will say Throttled still has a place in my heart because it is the first book, and I love that book so much. But I gotta hand it, like I said, to Lauren, because this book, minus, obviously added in with the movie My Fault London, this book really got me into F1. So it's got a special place. This series has got a special place in my heart. The next book is another interconnected series, which is, I think, the Maple Hills trilogy series. Maple Hills trilogy by Hannah Grace, and that is Wildfire. This is the second book in that series. In this book, we are following Russ and Aurora, who are both kind of, this book really hit close to home. I love the first one, which was Icebreaker, a lot, but this one hit too close to home, because in this one, basically, it's kind of got parental issues, and they both have daddy issues, but one of them mends a relationship, one of them breaks a relationship, I think. So Russ and Aurora actually end up having a one-night stand with each other after a party celebrating the end of the year, or end of the school year, and in that they end up having like a one-night stand. And basically, because Russ isn't known to be someone who's out there, he's not known to be someone who goes out of his way to go out there, so he ends up hiding in his bathroom thinking it will help the situation, when Aurora just slips out and away. So basically, Aurora goes away and is like, I need to go out. I need to go to a camp. I go to a summer camp because I cannot deal with this life. Like, I cannot deal with being with my parents another summer, blah, blah, blah. So she ends up going to this camp where it's like not a new camp to her. It's a camp that she's gone to since she was a child. And she actually ends up being the counselor of one of them, or one of the teams. And Russ does the same thing. Russ actually ends up doing the same thing, where he goes out there because he needs to get money or get some sort of thing for his dad, because his dad is the one that has the gambling problem and has basically gambled away his whole life, and also is drunk. Meeting each other at camp, and they try to kind of distance themselves from each other because they end up finding out that they both like each other. But in that, they try to distance themselves because you can't be dating at camp, or you can't be dating a counselor on campgrounds, one of the rules, which they end up breaking, obviously. And they end up finding out more about each other, and end up kind of learning that they both have the same issues, but basically it's like the same issue, different fonts. Same thing, but different fonts and whatnot. And Russ is able to allow Aurora to go and talk with her mother and talk with her, about whatever is happening. And she ends up finding out that her dad didn't want her in general, like did not want to be a part of her life in general. I don't remember what the reason was, but they didn't want to be a part of her life in general. So basically, she has a dad who doesn't want her in general. And then Aurora basically goes to us and is like, hey, you should talk to your dad, talk it out, tell him how you feel, like tell him actually how you feel. And Russ ends up doing that, talking with his mother and his parents, and be like, this is how I feel, I don't want to be a part of this, I don't want to be a part of this family at all. And in that, he actually somehow, not mends, but actually ends up making the situation better, because he, now they know what's happening, now that the mother knows what's been happening behind the father's back, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of like they both end up mending different relationships, but in different ways, and coming together and seeing how good they work together. And slowly but surely, they end up getting together and actually dating. So I honestly, I loved this because the way that they played, the way Hannah is able to kind of talk about, dad issues, I should say. Talk about dad issues and that kind of thing, and how dads aren't always the best and whatnot. Kind of hit really close to home, and like I said, I really enjoyed this book because of that, because it's really easy, but I really like this book and I really enjoyed it. This book, literally a 5-star, because it's just that good. It is literally that good, and it hit so close to home. So the first book that I actually read this year was very much a big book. I purely read it to get an A out of the way, and B, because I just knew if I wasn't going to read it then, or if I wasn't going to read it at that point, I wasn't going to read it then. And it is technically, for now, publicly wise, the last book in the ACOTAR series, which is A Court of Silver Flames. This book surprisingly took me a week to read. I don't know how, because it is literally almost a 1,000-page book. Tell me ask me how I can read this in about a week, but I can't read Iron Flame in a week. Anyways, but yeah, I read this book, this book follows Nesta and I think Cassian. Nesta and Cassian. I was like, which one of them follows Nesta and Cassian and their kind of love story, kind of relationship connection, blah blah blah. Now, the controversy with this book is with Nesta herself. I will firmly admit, through personal reasons of my own, I am not a Nesta stan. I don't hate her. I don't hate her. I just don't like her. She's not in the category of characters being my favorite. She is up there maybe in like third place. Maybe in third place. Obviously Feyre being first. Duh. But for personal reasons of my own, I don't like her that much. I will say that. That is the only qualm I have with this book, because this book was so freaking amazing. I love this book so much. Aside from Nesta still being a pain in my butt, I love it so much. Basically in this, we follow Nesta, obviously, and Nesta has basically been through a lot. So this is after, I think, the war, and we're still coming out of the war, still coming out of war times, and because Nesta is now made by the Cauldron, after being human for all her life, she's now made by the Cauldron, and she didn't actually want to be made by the Cauldron, so she is having to learn how to adapt to her new self and whatever, and still be in a court that she didn't actually want. So, mind you, she's in a court, she's, made or whatever. This is all out of things she didn't want to do. Like, she did not want to be this, she did not want to be like this. And basically, I don't really remember the whole reason why I don't like her, but it's basically just it's a sibling relationship kind of dynamic that is the reason I don't like her. Because, basically in this, mind you, Feyre is trying everything to make it comfortable for Nesta to be in the court, or be in the not castle, but in the court. And obviously Nesta now sees that Feyre is in her own family of her own. She is enjoying it. She is, almost like a new person or whatever. And has all this, like, power because she's now the, queen of the Night Court. And she sees that and she's just like, what about us? What about what happened to us? What about what happened to us, me and Elaine? And so basically Elaine now is also now self-made by the Cauldron, or made by the Cauldron, I guess. I don't know. Self-made? I don't know. Anyways, she's also made by the Cauldron. She has now powers, and so does Nesta. Nesta basically has powers that are equal to the powers of death. She is very, very powerful now with the magic she now holds from the Cauldron, because when she was in the Cauldron in ACOTAR, or not ACOTAR, what? ACOWAR. She was in the Cauldron in ACOWAR. She was so mad at the king then that she basically took a part of the Cauldron whenever she was in it. Hence why now she has powers of death, because she took the part of the Cauldron. Anyways, so basically she is, going through all these, like, traumatic situations while Feyre is trying to help her in, finding out what happened, finding out why this happened, and trying to also help, alongside other courts or whatever. Basically, it's a whole, like, Nesta basically just, like, thinking I don't know how to explain this, because I know people are gonna be like, oh, you're wrong, or, this isn't, whatever, I don't care. Like, I don't like Nesta at all. Nesta just, to me, gives off how my brother is right now to me, and I just don't. No. But basically, Nesta and Cassian are the two couples in this situation. I will admit, at the end, Nesta kind of was winning me over, but overall, I still literally don't. No. But anyways, I give this book a 4-star rating. Didn't enjoy it that like I enjoyed it, but the only reason why it has a tick star down is because it's because of Nesta. Because I really I wanted to throw this book across the room at some points when Nesta started talking. Yeah, basically, to me, Nesta could have really healed herself quicker and done it in a way that was much more not victimized, if you know what I mean. Because, like, yes, she didn't want to be self-made. Yes, she didn't want to do these things. Yes, she led a lot of things that she has, like the scrying or whatever. She didn't want to do it because she was trying in a way to save it and help other people. However, the way she went about it, just to me, really wasn't it. It really was just showing how much of a self-centered person she really is sometimes. And going on with the same author, the physical book that I finished recently is King of what? Throne of Glass. This is the book that I'm currently rereading the series because I actually haven't finished the series, and I am basically buying the new covers and reading it. So I did in fact listen to the audiobook with this because I kind of was like, I've already read it, I'm not going to reread it a second time, I'm just going to listen to it and follow along. So basically in this we are following Celaena Sardothien, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that name right, as she is entering into basically being the king's champion after being in the prison of the salt mines for a long time, because she is the notorious assassin who everyone knows about. He and the crown prince and the captain are basically working together to figure out who is killing these people along, like, you know, before they get to the games or whatever. And there is magic from the castle involved, which is kind of what is making them kill off each other. This book was like a 3. If I'm being honest, I feel like as I progress more into reading this series, I will continue to enjoy it. But this series, when I read it a second time, didn't really hit as much as I wanted it to. I feel like I didn't like it too much just because of the whole love triangle with the captain and then the crown prince, like real. I don't know. But and the first book that I read of this author is Beach Read by Emily Henry. But I picked this book back up after I tried to read it. Started it in June of last year. First book by Emily Henry that I've read. I am trying to read her books in publication order because I think I've read somewhere or heard somewhere that's like how recommended. I guess that's recommended to read it in publication order. But basically we're following 2 book writers. One who is Augustus Everett, and then the second who is January, which is the female main character. We do get dual POV in this. We do get dual POV in this book, but basically Augustus writes books from like a person, like a real life almost perspective, if you know what I mean. Like, he goes to situations in real life and then writes about it in his books, while January writes all these fun little flirty love story novels. But she falls into this kind of like a writer's block after she finds out that her father is killed, or her father dies, and she ends up going to his beach house, and that she finds and uncovers so many different things that she didn't know, but apparently her mother knew. But basically her father, while her mother had cancer, her father ends up going to a mistress, if I'm being completely honest with you, going to see other women. And in this, she finds out, like, his story, his side of things, his whatever that was happening. And Augustus and January kind of work together to kind of figure out how January should write. Basically, January and Augustus work together to kind of figure out you know, each of their writing styles and how to help with, you know, books that they need to write. And slowly but surely, January ends up finding her writing again. And basically, she ends up, you know, kind of working together with him to also kind of uncover family secrets and family this and that. And they end up getting together. That Emily Hunter, I feel like, is able to write fun little silly goofy novels of romance, but also add in romance advice in there and add in life advice and whatever. And I feel like that's exactly what she did with this book. I will definitely continue reading her books. I just haven't got the time to, apparently. But overall, I would say this book is probably like set 3 or 4-star reader for me. The next one is a fantasy book, which is a part of a series, which is part of a duology, and that is The Heartless Hunter, which is a part of the Crimson Moth series. Basically, this is a almost like cat and mouse kind of game where we follow a witch and a witch hunter. So basically, after the revolution or something like that, I don't know. Basically, the witch hunters have been trying to get rid of witches because of their magic and their power, and the power and magic that they have to get that the witches have is something that I've never really seen before, which is why I loved this book so much. And that is basically like writing on their skin, basically drawing on their skin in a tattoo kind of way that the lines hold the magic in them. It's basically like the blood. It's basically the blood. Witch, which is Rune, and the witch hunter, which is Gideon. So basically, Rune is the undercover kind of Crimson Moth, if we're being honest. And Gideon is trying to find this Crimson Moth because he knows that if he takes her out, then he'll take out the rest of them, because it's kind of like if I take this person out, all of them will follow kind of situation. So because Rune, she helps other witches find escape from the witch hunters, which leads to Gideon wanting to kill her because he's like, I need to kill this witch so that I don't have to, so that we have, you know, we're able to kill off these witches. And so Gideon tries to find the witch Crimson Moth. And so in that, he is undercover with Rune, who is basically acting as a witch hunter herself, but is also obviously not. So because they both have a mission to be on, the two of them, with the witch and witch hunters, or with her trying to, you know, figure out how to get one of the witches, because it is somehow in this, her mom's friend, which is also a witch, her mom's friend ends up getting captured by the witch hunters. So because of this, she is trying herself to find this witch to help her with another mystery. So she's basically like trying to figure out things from Gideon, or get things from Gideon to save this witch hunter, while Gideon is trying to get information from Rune to get the Crimson Moth. So in that, they kind of play this whole game, and in that they end up kind of falling in love together. But that is up until Gideon finds out that Rune is the Crimson Moth and has been playing him this entire time. So because of that, they obviously get mad at each other, their whole thing, while also Gideon knows that he does in fact still love Rune and still want to be with her. So I haven't finished the whole thing, because I don't want to say too much about the ending, because that is a very cliffhangery ending. But that is basically the premise of this book, and I absolutely was kicking giggling my feet the whole entire time. Literally loved this book so much. This book was like probably a 5-star read for me, because this was so interesting to read. And I am a little bit of a a connoisseur lover of witch and witch hunter kind of vibes, because it's just so fun to see how their dynamic is going to play out and whatnot. And this book definitely it gave me everything that it needed to, and I love it, and I'm so excited. I have not yet picked up the second one, don't know why. Kind of forgot it was coming out, literally, like, I think it was like last month, I don't know. Kind of forgot that, and I was like, oh, I have to pick that book up, and I keep on forgetting. So I will definitely be picking up the second book, because I love this book so freaking much. And I wasn't gonna read it until I think Onyx Storm came out, and when Onyx Storm came out, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna read that then. and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I will admit, I didn't read this book when it came out. I am very late to the game. But that's because I really wasn't sure if I was going to like it, because I love a dragon. I love a dragon book. However, I also didn't know it was going to be Game of Thrones like. So I kind of put this book off up until I just couldn't bear it any longer. So basically in this book we are following, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock, we are following Xaden and Violet. Violet is the daughter of the cadet Soaringale. Not cadet Soaringale. What? No. Of one of the Soaringales. One of the Soaringales in like the higher up kind of area. And she was going to be a scribe, but her mother ended up putting her into the quadrant, and she has to fight to survive because the quadrant isn't the nicest place to be. So she ends up surviving, and because of that, she ends up having to basically keep a secret of a lot of things that Xaden knows. Xaden is one of the Fourth Wing, I freaking forget. Was he a Fourth Wing captain? I think he was a Fourth Wing captain. I don't remember that much, okay? I have a memory of a goldfish. But basically, they end up kind of falling in love together. It's basically a whole thing. I loved this book so much. Fell in love with dragons even more because I love dragons so much. I will say, Dane, you better watch out, boy. But yeah, basically, that's kind of like the premise. Dane is her childhood friend turned almost lover, but he's a rule follower. So while Violet isn't necessarily one to a T, she is a kind of, Dane also they each have a signet, and Dane's signet is something that could put Violet in danger. So because of that, they have to end up breaking things off, which she is a-okay with, because she realizes how much Dane is toxic to her and whatever. And a lot of things happen. I feel like if I say too much, then it's not really interesting reading it. But basically, this is like you have to go into this knowing a few things, but mostly go into it blind, because it's so much better. Haven't finished the second one, but I absolutely want to read the series. Obviously, this is my pride and joy. This is my baby. It is a 5-star read. 5-star read. It's so much. And lastly, the two that I read on my Kindle is the Butch Kingdom and King of Wrath. Basically, I've already talked about Butch Kingdom in my last video. I won't talk about it that much again. But basically, overall, I absolutely didn't love the book. Didn't love it, but I loved it enough to continue reading the series. But that book is probably right now, I would say a 4-star read for me. A 4, maybe 3.5 star. 4-star read though. Because I definitely liked the dynamic between the two, and also the plot that happened at the end. Chef's freaking kiss. Yeah, definitely enjoyed that book so much. It was a nice little fantasy warm-up, not fantasy warm-up, but nice little fantasy book for the romances that were to come, because I am in a reading slump. I'm getting out of it though. And my next book is a physical book, so hopefully we won't be in too much trouble. But yeah, that was basically that book. And then the second book that I read, which is King of Wrath, which is the first book in the Kings of Sin series that I think Anna something other, Anna Wrong? I don't remember her last name, or her name in general. Oops. But basically, in this book, we are following Dante and Vivian. And Dante is the CEO of a Russo company, of his family's company, and Vivian is not in her family's company, but Vivian is a kind of like party person. Like, she creates parties. She creates the parties, the marketing, the things, all the situation, like the events. Like, she's an event planner. That's what it is, event planner. And Dante's little brother, Luca, actually ends up getting into a little skerfuffle with one of the mafia's daughters or nieces or something or other. And in order for him to not get killed, Francis finds out somehow. Francis, being her father, finds out somehow what is happening and blackmails Dante. And in this, Dante is forced to marry Vivian because Francis is like, I need you to marry into money so we can continue our, little money rich legacy. And so she's like, and he's like, Dante's the perfect candidate because he's like, so this and that, he's a perfect person. You are going to marry them. Mind you, Vivian doesn't want anything to do with Dante because Dante in her eyes is just absolutely so bad. And so Dante and Vivian end up getting together forcefully, end up moving into his house. Things happen, and basically Dante is with Christian, one of his little side buddies. How many photos this Francis has of this thing, destroy them, trying to figure out how to end this blackmail situation. While in that, he actually ends up falling in love with Vivian and is trying to push her off because he knows that at the end of the day, Dante is trying to push Vivian off, even though he's falling in love with her, because at the end of the day, he realizes that he will have to lose Vivian because he will want to crush Francis's jewelry company or whatever. That all happens, blows up in their faces. Vivian is like, was that even true? Was that even right? Was that whatever? And ends up going and off and is like, I'm not your fiance anymore. While Dante realizes the stupid mistake he made and created and whatnot, because Luca tells him, hey, like, I realize this is my fault. I realize everything that happened is my fault. However, do you actually want to lose Vivian? Do you actually want to lose her to this? And Dante ends up fighting with him, and then eventually fighting for Vivian. And Vivian comes around after going to a ball and hosting it and all kind of stuff. Honestly, like I said, silly, goofy, fun time. Romances are that for me. That is when I kind of realized that romances are a silly, goofy, fun time for me, because the ending was definitely kind of like abrupt, but I feel like it kind of wrapped up in a good way. But that book is probably like I think I gave it like a 4-star. I think I gave it a 4-star because the ending was kind of abrupt. The way that the situations were handled were kind of just like, that could have gone a lot longer. That could have been, not even needed, but okay. Didn't really have feelings for either of the characters, but enough to where I kept on going. So that is all of the books that I have read from the month of January to the month of May, which we are still currently in. My next book is actually, while we're here, going to be The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I have no clue what this book is about, but I'm hoping that this isn't I've heard it's very graphic in some areas, but I'm very interested to read this and see what it's about, because I've been eyeing this book for a very, very long time. So I'm hoping this actually pulls me out of my reading slump. Because while we are not in it, while we're not in the trenches with it, we are still kind of crawling back out. Like, we're seeing sunlight, but it's not like blinding us, if you know what I mean. Anyways, that was a weird analogy. I don't know what that was. Anyways, that is all the books that I read from January to May. More romances than I thought, honestly. I thought I read more fantasy, but I read a lot more romances, which is surprising because I am not a romance heavy person, more so fantasy person. But it is what it is. Let me know what you thought of these books, if you read these books and how you thought of them. If you rated them the same I rated them, or different, or if you're gonna put these on your TBR. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!